Today we are talking about the 8 worst exercises to build strength. Of course, any resistance training exercise is going to be useful, but these ones are either unstable, impractical, or flat out stupid. We're going to go over the 8 worst exercises. I'm going to tell you why they're bad, the best replacement, and why that is better. Now, kicking this list off, and this is the first one where instability becomes too much of a factor, is dumbbell bench press of any sort. Now, for me, this sucks because logistically, it's very difficult. Once you get in excess of a base level of strength, it's just so hard to get the dumbbells from your knees up to your shoulders, and then to make sure that your stability left to right is adequate. If you think about the weight that you use, and a really good way to conceptualize how to build strength is the amount of weight that you are pushing against, and that's how your muscle is going to adapt. It doesn't know what you're holding, what plane, if you're seated, if you're lying down. And with the dumbbell, there's so many degrees of freedom, up, down, left, right. It's good for stability, but stability doesn't necessarily equal strength. A strong bench presser will have stable shoulders without having to do dumbbell bench press. Now, it is okay for strength, but it's going to be the 8th worst to me exercises for building strength. The most useful replacement, and this is abundantly obvious, is barbell bench press. Logistically, way better, makes a lot more sense, way easier to set up, and way safer because you're much less likely to have the plane of motion veer off what you anticipate that plane of motion to be. Much easier to spot as well if you're using a weight that you're uncertain with, and you can work closer to your maximum intensity compared to dumbbells because you're not going to have a thing where one arm is sort of doing its own thing and you become unstable that way. It's also more than double the weight of a dumbbell that you might use. You might think, I dumbbell bench press 100 pounds a hand, so my flat bench is going to be around 200. That's just not true. If you can use 100s for dumbbell bench press, using 275 on flat bench should not be out of the question. And back to the general principle, if you use more weight, you are going to be getting stronger. Simple as that. The next exercise, and the second one I'm falling under the unstable category, is a bamboo bar of any type, or anytime weights are hanging down off of bars, anything that's adding instability other than just the movement itself. There is no strength purpose for this. If we think about something like even an athlete, an NFL athlete, the way that they should train, and the way that everyone should train, is that the gym is for getting strong or building aerobic capacity when going for a run. We're not trying to build strength and agility when we're lifting weights. You use that mode to then improve your ability to be agile on the field. But if you want to train agility, you go to the field. And this is a very firm opinion on any athlete training at the gym. Now, with a bamboo bar, I'm just going to use this as an example, but there's many variations, many competitors to the bamboo bar, basically a bar that's incredibly bendy and whippy. It is so little weight compared to the actual lift that you want to perform. Someone who can squat 1,000 pounds might only be able to squat 500 on the bamboo bar. So you're just as good going with a normal bar, using a tempo squat to be able to feel the range of motion, and you're going to have the same benefit without the same drawback. Now, the one thing that I believe that might be a little bit unpopular is that stability muscles are completely overrated. To me, there's no such thing as a muscle designed for stability. They all have an origin and insertion on that cross at least one joint, and they do that so that they can perform a function. Let's say rotator cuff muscles are great shoulder stabilizers, because if you cut the 4 tendons of the rotator cuff, your shoulder will fall off of your body. The 3 of those work for external rotation, 1 of those works for internal rotation, but you're not best to train that through only external rotation and internal rotation. You're best to train them in conjunction with the movement that you're trying to be strong. So stability muscles, to me, are an incredibly overrated thing to train in and of themselves. The best solution to the bamboo bar is to go the opposite direction and use a stiff bar or even an axle bar. Using this dead weight will always build raw strength over any type of inherently unstable movement. Strength is how much weight can you move in any plane of motion. How strong are you at deadlift is represented by a number, not by a feeling, not by a quality, not by a stability, but simply by a number. Having a stable platform with your body is really important. People talk about a stable core is a great foundation for a good squat, for example, which is 100% true. But having a stable weight to move is equally as important as creating the stability in your body itself. Now, to build pure strength, I would go all the way to say that You could go better than going from a bamboo bar to an axle bar, let's say. You could go bamboo bar to a machine, just a pure machine. The problem here is that it is a fixed plane of motion. So we have 1 degree of freedom where, let's say with the bamboo bar, you have the same degree of freedom as a axle bar or a stiff bar, but it promotes you to use all the degrees. So you're sort of like wiggling all over the place. But let's go back to the dumbbell bench versus the barbell bench example. With a barbell bench, you don't have this capacity or this capacity. All you have is this, and you can bring your arms up and down together. That's why you can lift more than twice the weight with the bench press. If we take that a step further and go, well, why not just go to a Smith machine or go to a seated machine bench press, where we eliminate all the degrees of freedom and you're just pushing straight against one apparatus. And this would actually be the best way to just get strong if we were talking about force transducers and a muscle working against a force transducer. But the problem here is twofold. One, this doesn't really replicate how you're gonna be training or existing in real life, and it's not gonna replicate extremely well when it comes to competition, because you do need to be able to control for those degrees of freedom in competition and in life. The second problem is once you get to a certain level of strength, pushing against 1 degree of freedom is just unsafe. Your muscles will get too strong that they will start to tear themselves, they'll start to tear tendons, and there's no forgiveness really to slightly modify your technique to muscle out a rep if you have 1 degree of freedom. So if we're bench pressing maximally against a machine, well, now my pec is stretched against a huge load. There's no way for me to sort of move it and use a little bit more tricep or flare my elbows and use a little bit more shoulders. All it is that plane of motion, and if your muscles are gonna give out, they're gonna give out regardless. The weight is just gonna get too high. So that's why I think happy medium is use a very stiff bar more often than not when you're trying to train for strength. The next exercise, I'm just saying, is plainly ineffective for building strength, and it's one of the favorites of people at the gym, and this is a bicep curl of any sort. This will build strength in your biceps, yes, but most people aren't looking to build pure strength in biceps themselves. Now, the reason that I don't think this is a good exercise just for building strength overall, first of all, it's an extremely low load, and it's a load that only crosses 1 joint. Any single joint movement is going to be exponentially less useful than multi-joint movements when it comes to building total body strength. Next, it really doesn't help with any larger compound lift at all. No overhead press. Rowing is very limited, and I'm going to talk about it in a sec. Deadlift, your arms need to stay straight, and it's just going to pose a larger injury risk. Stronger biceps tend to pull tendons off the bone. That's why every strongman that you see who's been competing for more than 5 years is going to have a big scar in their elbow, because ripping biceps off is so common. Next, big biceps can hinder your mobility for bigger lifts. Many guys who get big biceps cannot back squat anymore. Many guys with big biceps can't front rack and get a good range of motion on shoulder press, and it actually hinders your ability to express the strength that you have. The best replacement for this, to me, you're going to replace bicep curls with underhand barbell rows. You're still going to get bicep work in, but at the same time, you're going to build your lats, you're going to build your spinal erectors, and you're going to work on that hinge position. This is going to mean that your deadlift is getting built, your squat is getting built, the muscles that are going to support a strong bench press are getting built, as well as overhead pressing and every other motion that you're going to be doing. It is now a whole body movement on top of a very powerful core exercise. It's also just a safer and more practical way to train your biceps. Sorry, bros, bicep curls, not an effective way to build strength. The next ineffective way to build strength is very, very common, and this is deadlifting without straps. Now, straps, for those who don't know, I'm talking about the ones around the wrist that you loop around the bar. That helps you hold it. For everyone, your grip is going to give out well before your deadlift strength. It's remarkable how much lighter a deadlift feels when you have that strapped in versus when you're just holding it with your hands. Now, the usefulness of grip training is huge. Stronger hands is going to mean motor units are better connected from your brain to your hands, and you're going to have upchain effects, meaning that your shoulders, your biceps, your triceps, your traps will be stronger. So I'm not saying grip training is overrated. I'm saying it's overrated to use the deadlift without straps because you're omitting any benefit from deadlifting in the first place. You might as well just do a rack pull and hold that with your hands as long as possible. The rest of the movement is simply a formality if you're trying to train for strength. The replacement to this is just use your straps, whether it's figure 6 straps that you wrap around the bar or figure 8s that you loop back around your wrist. It doesn't matter, but something that affixes you to the bar and your grip isn't going to be the limiting factor. If you do want to train your grip, you're going to train it at higher frequency and lower intensity than a deadlift in the first place. This means every single day, or at least 6 days a week, training grip for sets of 45 to 60 seconds. Our hands are used every day for gripping things, adjusting things, moving things. You never really get tired hands on a day-to-day basis unless you're doing some sort of renovation or screw driving or something. But the reason for that is they're extremely fatigue resistant and they are not very responsive to heavy loads. Meaning that if we train them, we got to train them very high frequency, relatively lower loads, and higher volumes. So now we're getting to 2 exercises that are just simply unsafe, in my opinion. This one is a loaded Spanish squat. A Spanish squat is that one where you affix the back of your knees and you have your torso very upright, and it's a closed chain knee extension. The reason that this is unsafe is because it is an extremely high shear stress on the knee. Our joints and our whole body is made to be loaded up and down really well. We're very, very robust at that. But as soon as we start to introduce any sort of shear force where this force is happening, it is just not good for you whatsoever. Body weight Spanish squats, I really like as an exercise, as a quad builder. Once you start building a little bit more load, the anterior translation of the tibia on the femur, this motion, is protected by the ACL. And as you can imagine, you load this up and the ACL is going to suffer. Check out that video right there. Not comfortable. Now, the best replacement for this, if we're trying to train our quads in a closed chain manner, it's going to be close stance leg presses. The closer the stance is on leg press, the more we're going to be building quads. I love quads as a general strength promoter across the board. They're going to be used for your squats, for your deadlifts, for your triple extensions, for your moving events. That end range knee extension cannot be overvalued. Now, this close stance leg press, where we're using those quads, it creates a safe closed chain leg extension to build strength in a similar motor pattern to a squat or a similar motor pattern to overhead press. If you take the technique the other way and you wanted to go wide feet and high, this is going to build more hamstrings, glutes, and probably has a better carryover to your deadlifting. Another unsafe exercise, in my opinion, is unsupported Nordic curls. For anyone who's not an elite athlete, this is just so much load, and loading eccentrically has a higher risk of injury than loading concentrically. And without any sort of support, you hit a point where your muscles just give out and you're trying to resist against a muscle that's given out. A Nordic curl, hands across the shoulders, you've got something holding your heels to your feet to the ground, and you tilt forward and resist with your hamstrings. Really common for ACL recovery because eccentric hamstring control supports the ACL, but not good for deadlifts, not good for moving events, not good for squatting. There's not a lot that this is really going to be useful for other than fast deceleration, which is seldom used when it comes to strength sports. Next, we want to be training closed chain at the feet. Everything in the world, everything in strength is going to be when you are affixed to the ground. And if your body is the only thing moving and your feet are inherently more free, it's going to be much less effective to build overall strength than if we have our feet in a good, stable position and the thing that we are moving is the weight, not moving ourselves. Now, my recommendation is to train with a closed chain movement with your feet affixed to the ground. Now, Nordic curls are arguably closed chain because your knees are affixed to the ground, but I'm saying open chain because your body is the thing that you are moving. Now, my best alternative for this would be a safety bar squat good morning. The reason is that builds posterior chain strength and core strength to benefit all of your compound lifts and protect your low back at the same time. You're not losing a huge amount so long as you get a good hamstring stretch without having all of the risks associated with doing a Nordic curl. Now, the last 2 exercises I am just calling nonsense, where I don't see a purpose for anyone to really be doing these unless it's a very particular sporting outcome that you're looking for. And the number 1 nonsense exercise to me, I'm talking about partial squats. It's essentially a closed chain knee extension, and it's a squat just in your most mechanically advantaged area, meaning you're going to have to use so much load to be able to do this. that it's going to have other risks associated with it. It's not really going to translate to a better squat. And the tax on the nervous system is huge. The nervous system is what we're training when we're trying to get strong. And if we're fatiguing that nervous system, it is going to be extremely difficult to go on to do any of your other training. And it's going to start to ruin your workouts. Your strength will start to go backwards if you overload the nervous system. And this is one of the major reasons why. The closest thing that I do to this is something like a yoke. And a yoke where we have a weight where we pick it a little bit off the ground and we move with it. I don't touch that in training much at all because of the effect it can have on the nervous system. And you just feel absolutely drained. To talk about a little bit about the nervous system and how it responds to being overtrained, you become irritable, you have massive fatigue during the day, and you have insomnia at night, and your appetite changes considerably. If you notice those three, that is likely sympathetic overtraining. Now, with the appetite changing, people who tend to lose weight will tend to lose weight. People who tend to gain weight will tend to gain weight. So it's quite a dichotomy in how the appetite actually changes, but it does considerably when we're overtraining our sympathetic nervous system. My best complementary exercise, or the best replacement for a partial squat, is a full pin squat, where we still are going to a good safe position where we're resting the bar on pins, so we're not going to get trapped in the hole. But partial range of motion training is going to be inferior nonstop. There's one influencer out there named Joel Seedman who promotes 90-degree only training, and that's technically how the body's supposed to move. Does not make sense. I don't agree with it in the least. Full range of motion training is going to get you stronger than partial range of motion training through a full range. And I don't think anyone cares what's your partial bench press. Well, how much weight could you unrack? No one asks that. No one goes, could you help me move a box 1 inch off the ground? It just doesn't really happen, and you're not going to build a strong, robust body that way. If we go to a full pin squat, you're going to be forced to not only use your quads like in the partial squat, but also your spinal erectors, your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves, your core. We're going to be starting to work the entire body. Now, this is a theme. If you want to get strong, you have to do exercises that use the full body. There's also going to be significantly less nervous system load on a full pin squat than even a full normal squat, because we're taking out the stretch, shorten cycle response where you're getting that little bounce out of the hole. We eliminate the bounce, we drop the load, your nervous system will be protected, and you're going to be able to build good raw strength. And my last exercise that I am also calling nonsense in the strength world is shrugs of any sorts. Now, elevating your shoulders is a very narrow skill. I can't think of a lot of reasons this is going to be used whatsoever. It's good for aesthetics, but it's not going to improve your strength in any big lift or any practical strength element in life. The reason for this is it doesn't stop protraction or rolling the shoulder blades forward. Being able to pinch the shoulder blades back and maintain a good thoracic position is incredibly useful for virtually every lift. And I'll get to that in a second. But if you're already perfectly erect and all you're doing is moving your shoulders up and down, there's not a lot of reason that that's going to be a massive return for you, in my opinion. For me, the best replacement for this would be a rack pull, where we're going somewhere between 6 and 8 inches of lockout. I don't love this, just like I don't love partial squats, but it's certainly a much better replacement if you're looking to build strength purely in the upper back. Reason is you're going to be slightly hinged over, so you can't let your chest collapse. We're going to be working thoracic extension. We're going to be working on our ability to protract and retract our shoulders, which keeps shoulders healthy over the long run, especially when you're overhead pressing. And we will be building some upper back strength and mass at the same time. Now, the context of this and the exercise that I am saying are useful and not useful is purely to build total body strength and to build strength, generally speaking. This is not a commentary on what you should be doing for bodybuilding or what you should be doing for sport. It is simply, if you're looking to get strong, flat out get strong, do not waste your time with these exercises. I would love to know what you guys think. What else would you put on the list? And is there anything I've put on the list that you actually like and would prefer to keep and you would recommend people to do it who are looking to get strong? If you want some more guidance on how to get strong, the link to my coaching programs is in the description. It's not only programs, but education tied along that as well. So you're taken care of from top to bottom. And I promise you'll be better, not just for 12 weeks, but for forever. As per usual, guys, lift heavy, be kind. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Go ahead and pop a comment if you can. and subscribe to the channel so you can catch videos in the future. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind, and we'll catch you next time.